just like to say, if y'all would please make sure your cellular devices are turned off, your Apple Watches are muted, all that good stuff. That'd be great, because it's being recorded. And I'm so happy y'all are here on a very late Sunday night. All right. So, tonight I'll be talking and playing some character pieces by women composers for you. You might be asking, why choose repertoire by women composers? There's the most obvious choice, I think, which is diversity and representation. We want to make sure that people who haven't gotten the chance to have the spotlight have that chance now, and we can play that music and we can teach it. It also provides wonderful opportunity for individuality and repertoire selection and ownership of music. I don't know how many people have heard a piano student say to them, you know, my brother played for Elise. I don't want to play it. I've heard that piece so many times. A lot of this music hasn't been necessarily heard before, or is less common to our ears, and so it's really nice for those students to be able to have something else to choose from. And lastly, this music is really wonderful for student growth and independence and critical thinking skills. A lot of this music isn't edited or published in the same way that a lot of their male counterparts were published, so that means a lot of them don't actually have a lot of the same editorial markings like finger numbers, like musical shaping, dynamics, and so this actually forces the student to be a little bit more creative and use their critical thinking skills to come up with finger patterns of their own and find that beautiful musical shaping in the music. I just want to make a quick plug for a website and project that's been really helpful for me throughout doing this, and that would be Piano Music She Wrote. On a quest to find more piano music by women written for students to incorporate in the repertoire, pianists Sandra Mogensen and Erica Ann Sipes combed through the IMSLP collection, and they actually created a database of repertoire that they believe to be excellent and appropriate options for students. And they're organizing this. I'll show you what the database looks like. And it has composer, it has dates, it has country of birth, all that good stuff, and they're leveling it so that you can go ahead and utilize it, and they're making recordings so that if you decide to play this repertoire, or your students do, they have access to that, which is fantastic. Why character pieces? Character pieces, if you don't know what they are meant to embody something. So for example, they might be meant to embody the sea, or maybe they're supposed to be about a butterfly. These pieces are enjoyable for students of all ages, so the buy-in is low, and they often highlight certain pedagogical concepts, like an etude would. They're very short, and so they're very approachable, and they allow students of all ages to play dynamic works that capture a lot of different musical ideas. Before we get started and dive into the lecture, just a few things that you should know if you don't already. Pedagogy means the approach to teaching something. So for example, piano pedagogy would be how we teach piano. Leveling is something that I'll be talking about throughout this lecture recital, and leveling is basically a ranking system of difficulty for repertoire. We have a few different systems. One would be the McGraw system, which ranks on a level from 1 to 10, 1 being the more easy repertoire and 10 being more difficult. And then we can also rank in 3 different categories of elementary, intermediate, and advanced. Another important concept to know would be voicing. Voicing is pulling out a particular line. Sometimes it's a melodic line, and a lot of times this occurs when we have thick textures, so a lot of notes are occurring at the same time, and we can't actually pick out the most important one, so we might bring that one out and make it a little bit louder. If you don't know, the Western classical canon is comprised of musical works that are traditionally utilized, so a lot of these pieces that you're going to be seeing would not fit inside that canon, which is what I'm talking about today. And then, last but not least, texture is what I was referencing when I was talking about voicing, when we have maybe different stacks of notes, different layers. So if I'm talking about like a super thick texture, you might think about a fugue that has a bunch of different voices. Or if I'm talking about a thin texture, you might think of something from the classical era. All right, so my order of operations today, I'll give you a brief bio on each of these composers because I think it's important to highlight their legacy. I'll give you basic information and highlight the level and difficulties of each piece and the translation if that's relevant. And then I'll also give you a teaching demonstration addressing some of the difficulties that I mentioned and showing how you might teach that to a student. The way that I'll be going through this information is in 5 different sets. There's a total of 12 pieces, and my 5 sets are grouped by similar pedagogical elements and style. So first, I'd like to talk about sparkling runs, chords, and hand crossing, featuring the work of Florence Price and Elena Messina. Florence Price was an African-American composer and pianist, and she was the first Black woman to have a symphonic work performed by a major orchestra. During her lifetime, she faced gender and racial discrimination, and she even enrolled herself as Mexican at the New England Conservatory so she could avoid unwanted harassment. Her piece, The Goblin and the Mosquito, is a favorite amongst her works due to the narrative of Goblin, which is portrayed by this low plodding theme, being harassed or annoyed by a mosquito, which is represented by these rapid flourishes and harmonic seconds. This piece is an intermediate level 6, and the pedagogical elements include hand crossing, range, both a reading challenge and a physical challenge moving across the piano, articulation, and runs. And an adjacent work in the classical canon is Visions Fugitives, number 10 by Prokofiev. Come on in. All right, so when you're exploring the range of the piano, one thing that's going to be helpful is identifying the topography of the keyboard. Moving across the piano is going to be difficult if there's big leaps, like in this piece, in this excerpt that you can see up here. So you can have your student identify what the pitches are. In this case, I'm looking for an E and an F, and this might seem a little elementary, but I'm going to look for my E and F, and I'm going to notice that they're between the group of 3 and the group of 2 black keys, and I'm going to find those. And I might do something that's called a crossover, just to warm up and help me find those notes going down the piano. So I'm going to think about playing and preparing, meaning as my one hand is playing, I'm thinking about moving the next hand over. So right, left, I'm already preparing the right hand, and I'm moving down the piano. So you can think about sinking your weight into the keys, looking for that topography, and then for this particular piece, because this is the mosquito effect, so we want it to be really annoying, we are going to want a nice staccato sound, and you can have your student think about touching a hot stove, ouch, you know, you're going to be quick in and out of the piano, and you can have them try that, see if they can get a really nice crisp noise. If you want a piano sound, maybe you'll stay a little closer to the key, and you can have that, then try that going down the piano. Next up will be the sparkling runs that are found in this piece. I like to think of this section as the jovial mosquito. This is when the mosquito has annoyed the goblin. The goblin's really upset and angry, and the mosquito's doing circles around its head. So as we see, we have these runs that are occurring, and we have a slur marking over them, meaning we are going to be heavy on the first note, and we're going to have a nice brilliant run to the top. To create this effect, we want to make sure we use active fingers, which means that we're using a lot of individual finger motion, and you can try an exercise on the fall board where you put the cover down and see if you can hear the fingers using the fingertips. If you can hear them, that probably means you're using active fingers. It can be pretty loud. So with this case, with our slur marking, we want the first note to be loudest, and we want to fall away from the rest of the notes and make that noise. So I'll demonstrate that in our piece here. And then there's another excerpt that's going to be the same group of notes, but it's going to be at the piano dynamic level, and the difference in gesture for that is going to be just closer to the key. So you just want it to be a little lighter. The next piece in this set is composed by Elena Messina. She was a Soviet-era Russian composer, pianist, and pedagogue. With the help of her sisters, she established the first Russian School of Music, which hosted the first Russian children's choir. It's still operating today, and it's arriving at its 130th anniversary this year. Her piece, March, from her album of children's music, is an intermediate level 5. Its pedagogical elements include hand crossing and proximity, voicing, chromaticism, and runs. An adjacent canon work would be Tchaikovsky's Album for the Young, and in particular, the Toy Soldiers March. This piece composed a rhythmic challenge and these alternating 16th notes that you see here. So it might be helpful before you have your students try this piece to have them actually feel the grounding of the rhythm. So I'd actually like you all to interact with me a little bit here. Could you all actually stand up? Thank you so much. And I'm just going to play just a little bit of this for you. And because this piece is called March, I would like you all to step to the beat and feel the weight of your feet. Are you all ready? Yeah. All right, here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Feel that in the gesture itself. And we want to use good follow through on these 16th notes. We're going to that last 8th note that's in the group up there. And you can have them think about just dropping their weight into the key. Again, on the fallboard, it's a great exercise to do. When you take this to the piano, one thing that you can't actually see that I wish I would have included is the fact that both of these staves are using treble clef, which means that the hands are actually stacked on top of each other. So when you take this to the piano, the hand proximity might get in the way of the gesture. So when you take it to the piano, I would suggest trying it an octave apart. It sounds a little funky, but it'll help them utilize that same motion with good follow through before trying it fully. All right, now I'd like to go ahead and play these pieces for you. So I will play Goblin and the Mosquito first and March second. Yes, enjoy my picture of a giant mosquito. Was a prolific French composer and pianist who composed in the Romantic style with impressionistic qualities. She was initially self-taught and eventually attended the Paris Conservatory, shortening her name to Mel to appear more masculine when seeking publication. Due to societal expectations of women at that time, she was actually initially held back from pursuing music by her family, and she was forced into arranged marriage, even though she'd already found someone that she truly loved. Her parents decided that a businessman who actually hated music was a better fit for her. Because he disliked music so much, he prevented her from playing in the home oftentimes, and he discouraged her from seeking publication or composing. However, she later, after he passed away, found her romantic partner again and decided to keep pursuing publication with his help. Frère Jacques is one of her pieces from children's scenes. It's an intermediate level 4, and the pedagogical elements include canon, theme and variation, voicing, and articulation. And a nice preparatory work for this piece would be Mary Had a Little Lamb by the composer that I will be talking about in the second piece for this set, Drybrough. All right, so with a piece that has a lot of thick layers like this one, it's really important to pull out the melody. You all probably know this from listening to or playing Bach. That's something that's really hard to do, but going through and highlighting that melody and singing it is really helpful. So I'm actually going to have you all, if you please, sing with me. Does everybody know Frère Jacques? Yes? Anybody not know Frère Jacques? Oh, too shy to raise our... No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'd love for you all to sing with me. Here's our lovely F major chord, and if you all would sing Frère Jacques with me, and I'd actually like, just for the purpose of thinking about this, how we would play it on the piano, if we could shape it to the 3rd note. So what I mean by that, can we sing Frère Jacques, shape it to the 3rd note? All right, let's go. 1, 2, ready. Frère Jacques, Frère Jacques, if it's not something familiar like Frère Jacques, you might have them pick out some words for it. You guys definitely know the words. I could hear them. Good diction, very strong diction. After you have them try that, you might want to practice with that beautiful shaping. Practice hands separately first so that you can master it in each hand. And then an exercise that you could try is playing one hand while your student plays the other, so you can hear how the parts fit together. And I thought about making you guys sing this in a canon, but I'll spare you for now. For today, maybe tomorrow. But another really difficult thing about this piece, if you want to look at this excerpt with me, is the variation in articulation that we've had going on. So we've got a lot of marcatos, we've got some staccatos, we've got some slurs, and doing those one hand at a time is okay. But when you put them together, it's a little bit more difficult. So one thing that you could try is linking from a point where the hands are unison in articulation and then stopping where it changes. So I'm going to just play these 3rd measures for you so you can hear the difference between the held note in the left hand and the marcato note on the right hand. And then I'll continue on so you guys can hear that change. Articulation changes, my hands are going to be physically doing something different. Whatever the marcato is, my hand is going to be coming up, but if I have a legato or if I have a held note, my other hand is going to be staying down. So you can have your student try that so they can feel the difference. Or my left hand is going to be staying down because it has a held note, or if I were to continue to move through the piece, wherever I have legato, I'm going to think about weight pressing into the keys, sinking in, with my marcatos coming out. On to my next piece, composed by Drybrough. She is an Armenian-American composer and pedagogue who currently teaches out of her home in Belmont, Massachusetts. She continues to give lectures and master classes internationally, and she's a Juilliard-trained pianist and actually studied with Helen Hopkirk, who is going to be another pianist that I talk about later in this presentation. Her piece, Adventurous Journey, is an intermediate level 8. Its pedagogical elements include imitation, articulation, and chromaticism. And an adjacent piano work would actually, I think, be Bach Invention number 13 in A minor because of all of the imitation and polyphony. With a piece like this one, it has the similar challenge that Frère Jacques has, where one hand is going to be playing one articulation style, and the other hand is going to be playing something different. The right hand is going to be primarily legato in this first excerpt. And it uses these scale-like patterns And when you're playing scales at a fast rate, it can be hard for them not to catch or stick in the key. I don't know if you all have ever experienced that where you're playing scales where you feel like you're literally getting caught or you're getting stuck in the key. So what's important to remember when you're playing scales is you're going to use some nice wrist circles. Whenever you're finding a new group of notes, and that usually starts with finding the thumb, you're going to use a wrist circle. So I'll just demonstrate. I know you're probably wondering why I have all my excerpts named, and I'll tell you in a second. But I'm going to demonstrate this first one, line 1, and each time that you all see figure number 1, I'm going to be moving under with my wrist so that I can keep that beautiful legato line without a hiccup in my line. So this is one group where I'm moving under. Next group. You can have your student try those individual pairings and then all together. So that it's one nice smooth legato line. With the left hand, you're going to want to use a nice active, close to the key staccato with quick motion in and out. Now, you're probably wondering about why I have my excerpts named. This piece is called Adventurous Journey, and it's really long. It's not that long, but it's long. It's 4 pages, which for maybe an intermediate level student, this piece could seem probably pretty boring because it just goes through these imitations and variations, and it seems like it lasts forever and does the same thing over and over again. So with a piece like this one where it has a name called Adventurous Journey, and who knows what that means, it's really nice to create a storyline. So with this piece in particular, a storyline that we came up with, this is Dr. Lopes' idea, which I thought was really great, is these children are coming home from school and they're going to go have some sort of imaginary play fight with pirates out in the woods. Pretty fun. So I decided that my first 4 lines were going to have names, and each of those names was going to have some sort of manner, some sort of characteristic so that I could differentiate them in my mind. So my first one is Will, and he is a well-mannered and even-tempered young man. The second one is Jimmy. He's a little bolder than Will. The third one is Fiona, and she's fierce. And the last one is Tim, and he's timid. So when you're thinking about asking your student to do these kinds of things, how do you articulate that on the piano? So for example, if you have somebody like Fiona and she's fierce, maybe you have sharper articulation. Or maybe you have louder dynamic sounds. Or somebody like Will, maybe he's going to be a little bit more bland, a little bit more legato. So those are just some ideas. I'll play the difference between Fiona and Tim so you can hear the differentiation of how I'm articulating those. So Fiona's going to be a little sharper. And then Tim is going to be a little bit more subdued and legato, maybe kind of creeping out. So you can have that differentiation that might help your student kind of imagine those things if finding the musicality in a piece is difficult. All right, I'd like to go ahead and perform these for you. talk about soundscapes and sensitivity. My first composer is Akiana Serna. She's an award-winning composer and pianist living in Costa Rica. Her work is inspired by her multidisciplinary education in theater, dance, and improvisation, and reflects her interest in magic and the supernatural. El Sueño de Akiana, or The Dream of Akiana, is a suite of storytelling pieces that take us through several dreamscapes. Serna writes, "One day, I dreamed that I was human. I looked at the clouds, danced, and put my human body into the sea. I dreamed that I loved a human man, and I dreamed that the world was going to end." Yo soy el mar, from this suite, translates to I am the sea, and it is an intermediate level 5. Its pedagogical elements include tremolo, Alberti bass, and singing melodic lines. This piece could be a good preparatory work for Mozart's Fantasia in D minor, and I know that might sound a little far away, but because it utilizes Alberti bass and some of these classical elements of singing melodic lines and accompaniment patterns, I believe that would be a good fit. So how do we create this stormy kind of effect with I am the sea? We can use tremolo to create this effect. If you haven't heard of tremolo before, it's a back and forth movement, kind of like oscillating over a group of notes. So if you guys would actually like to hold out your hands with me, we're going to create some tremolo in the air. And how we can do that in an effective way without tension is by pretending to turn a doorknob. Can y'all turn doorknobs with me? So we want to think about rocking back and forth, maybe using a low wrist, especially over expanses like this where you have an octave. If you have a student that has a smaller hand size, if they're not using this nice rocking motion, but they're stretching their hands out, that's going to be really, really hurtful to them. Before attempting to perform tremolo in a characteristic manner, adding shaping to everything, you want to make sure that your student can play it measured, which means that you're selecting a certain amount of notes to be played within the span of a beat. So I'll just show you really quickly how we can try that. I could try this with 8 notes, where I'm playing the first measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you can have them try it that way, making sure that they're using a good rocking motion, and then you speed it up to 16ths and faster until they can play it unmeasured where they're not counting. To create a nice character for this piece, you can consider varying the articulation. So for example, if you're thinking a way of crash, maybe you start throwing into the key with your tremolo with a nice attack fast into the key. Or if you want a wave swell, maybe you're starting slower into the key with a quieter dynamic level. So you can vary it in that manner. Next up is Emily Diener. Emily Diener passed away this past year, but she was a prolific and accomplished composer who is known to be a kind and reserved individualist. Contrasts her music, which is often known to be angular, robust, and very sharp. She professed that she loved composition more than a chocolate sundae, which is a lot. I don't know how much you all like chocolate, but I like it a lot. This piece, Infinity, is from Sound Pictures for Piano, and it's an intermediate level 5. The pedagogical elements include glissando, meter, counting, overlapping layers, and a preparatory work for this piece could be Carnival Celebration by Paul Drybrough. Infinity is another piece that has a little bit more of an elusive title. So it would be a great idea to ask your student, what is infinity? What defines it? And also go ahead and paint a picture with them. So for example, is infinity space? Is it time? Is it how deep the ocean is? And then thinking about the terms for infinity. It has no pauses, it doesn't have any seams, but it's one continuous broad sweeping movement. So with the glissandos that are in this piece that you can see in this excerpt, it's going to be important that they have no lurches or hiccups. And to create that beautiful sweeping glissando, you're going to want to use the back of your hand, focusing more on the fingernail, maybe a little bit more flat to the key, because otherwise you can kind of catch your skin on the piano. That's not going to feel super pleasant. So taking the back of your hand, and think about movement into the key to create that beautiful sweeping glissando. And then with these overlapping layers that you see, these triplets, you're going to have to sneak in, these hands are crossing over, And you're going to have to sneak in, so when one hand crosses, you're going to think about the other hand still being a little bit louder, one dynamic level louder maybe, so that you don't hear the other hand starting. So I'll see if I can accomplish that for you all real quick. So you just want to see if you can just sneak right underneath to make that beautiful overlapping effect. Last but not least in this set is Helen Hopkirk. She was a Scottish pianist and born to a musical family. By her mid-20s, she was already performing and soloing with notable European orchestras. And over her lifetime, one of her biggest advocates was actually her husband. Over a 2-year span, he organized 42 recitals, chamber and orchestral appearances for her to tour around Europe, and later she toured in the United States. The Seal Woman Seajoy is from Two Tone Pictures. It's an early advanced level 9, and its pedagogical elements include octaves, voicing, and rolls. And this could be a good preparatory work for Pagodes, which is from Debussy's Estampes. With this piece, it has just so many different movements and so many different textures. This could be a really wonderful piece to think about the piano as multiple instruments instead of just piano. So I have a few different excerpts up here for you. With the cello excerpt, you would like to think about creating a beautiful legato effect. Maybe this is the mist of your C. And so using your finger pads, creating one sweeping motion of the keys. So you can have your student think about that. And then with our chime effect, instead of using finger pads, you might use fingertips. And listen to voicing to the top. Think about going directly down into the key. So you can hear each distinct note. With the harp sound, it's going to be similar to our cello sound, but it's going to be a little bit faster. And we're going to have a direction out and move to the bottom note. So we're going to use our finger pads. And just go straight down to that bottom note. And then last but not least, this one, I don't know if you all know this instrument, but it's a hammered dulcimer. That's the sound that I thought fit this the best. And maybe if your student doesn't already have an awareness of instruments, you could listen to some different recordings with them. But we're thinking a similar motion to chimes. We're using fingertips. We're headed to the last note with very active fingers. So we want that nice, crisp, clear sound. All right. I'd like to go ahead and perform this for you all as well. Okoye is an American-born composer with Nigerian ancestry, holding master's and doctoral degrees from Oberlin Conservatory and Rutgers University. Her work is inspired by her heritage and is a resplendent celebration of triumph in the face of adversity, the nurturing strength of community, and the profound transformative power wielded by Black women throughout history. Is what a colleague said of her. Dancing Barefoot in the Rain is from African Sketches. It's an intermediate level 6. Its pedagogical elements include mixed meter, syncopation, counting, and a stretchy left hand. An adjacent work in the classical canon would be Bartók's 10 easy piano pieces, particularly number 6, which is Hungarian folk song. With a piece like Dancing Barefoot in the Rain, you all can see that it's in 5/4, which isn't always an easy meter to feel. And so with a piece like this, it might be easier to teach it by rote first. So I would like you guys to once more participate with me, and I'm going to make up some words to just a little portion of this piece that I would like you all to repeat back to me. So to make your student effectively feel this, it's good to go ahead and keep a pulse. So I'm going to keep an 1/8 pulse, and then I'll have you repeat that. I like to sing. 1, 2, 3, you try and go. I like to sing. Yeah, so you can have them think about it that way. With this particular piece, my I like was on the held note, and because this is syncopated, we're going to want to put emphasis on that note, so you can have them speak it with that kind of emphasis. And then you can actually have them take it over to the piano and use the piano as a drum. So once more, I'll put my fallboard down again. And with those long held notes, you're going to be thinking about pressing into the keyboard and putting some nice heavy weight. I like to sing. And putting that nice weight on it. Another tricky thing about this piece is feeling where to place the hands together. And so I might recommend going through and highlighting where they're going to be aligned. And then you could also play a portion of this piece on a vamp and have your student move with it, or also have them play along and improvise. So I'd like to have a volunteer from the audience. Is anybody feeling excited tonight? Dalton, come on down. We didn't plan this at all. We didn't plan this. Thank you so much, Dalton. Okay, I will say that I did ask Dalton tonight to do this, but he doesn't know what he's doing. Disclaimer. So, are you ready?
Maybe.
All right. So I'm going to play this excerpt that you see on the right side. I'm just going to play the left hand, and we're thinking about groups of 3 and groups of 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. Feeling that weight on the 1, and I would like Dalton, if you please, if you want to just play any of these black keys up here, whatever you want to play. I'm just going to play the left hand, and you can find the groove if you so like. You ready? All right. As Dalton would be. Wouldn't be great to have Dalton as a piano student. But you can still just have them play and limit it to just asking them to play on just the downbeats, just the ones, if that makes them a little bit more comfortable with trying an improv activity. The next piece in this set is by Valerie Capers. Dr. Valerie Capers is a pianist, vocalist, composer, and pedagogue who has made jazz more accessible to classically trained musicians. Capers became blind at the age of 6, but she continued to pursue piano, becoming the first blind student to graduate from Juilliard. Upon graduation, she found it difficult to secure a teaching position because most institutions would not hire a blind instructor, but she went on to get hired at several positions and have a very long career. One of her most notable collections is Portraits in Jazz, and all of these pieces in this collection are meant to reflect a specific jazz figure and have the styles of that figure. So the piece that I'll be focusing on today is called Sweet Mr. Jelly Roll, and it's meant to emulate Jelly Roll Morton. Does anybody know who that is? A few people. So he's a rag blues style pianist, and the pedagogical elements in this piece are going to be rag style, syncopation, stride, bass, and voicing. And this piece actually has, you might recognize a few of the motifs because they're pulled directly from Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. So I think this piece would be an excellent preparatory work for that. With a piece like this one, the right hand has a lot of syncopation, a lot more rhythmic challenges, but the left hand is very metronomic and consistent. So it's important to practice hands separately. And then when trying to pair the hands together, you might try utilizing a drum beat or a metronome with the right hand before you try to pair it with the left hand. You could also try tapping the left hand where you play the right hand. And I'm just going to demonstrate what that could look like. So with the right hand shaping, you're going to want to lean or put extra emphasis on those syncopated notes. And you can tap just the left hand quarter note. So you can feel that placement. You can also try stomping on those tie notes in case your student brushes right past that. So if they play this, that's a little funky. You might have them stomp in the place of that tie note, so they can feel exactly where that placement's going to be. And then I'd like to make a quick shout out to Spotify. There's this wonderful artist called Drybrough. I don't know if they're a person or an entity. But Drybrough has basically a bunch of different metronome settings, but they're all groovy. That's Aurora. Let me pull up my drum beat. So you can have your student rock out to this drum beat. And that can be a pre-stage before you have them tap the left hand. And then once you put the hands together, it's going to be difficult to, same kind of concept with Frere Jacques, find where the articulation changes and execute it. So you can do the same kind of linking exercise where you stop on the downbeat of wherever the articulation style changes. And just feel where that's going to shift in the hand. All right, I'm going to play this set for you all. pianist, composer, and pedagogue who taught in Christiana. Her compositional work reflects a mature and intuitive pianist with accessible patterns and beautiful singing lines. Sandra Fugler is from 3 small piano pieces. It translates to Butterfly. It's an intermediate level 3 or 4, and its pedagogical elements include finger legato, sneaking in with the thumb, voicing, and phrasing. A comparable work in the classical canon would be Little Study, which is from Robert Schumann's album For the Young. So with a character piece like a butterfly, you might think about what a butterfly does. Butterflies are kind of unpredictable. They might land on something, they might fly away, they might get caught in a windstorm. So with a piece like this could be a really wonderful work to use rubato and push and pull the tempo a little bit. Before asking your student to use rubato, make sure that they can play it in time first. And then you can describe rubato in a few different ways, thinking about falling down a hill or thinking about being pushed. And you can also have them walk to the beat to feel where the time is. So I'd actually like you guys to stand up, and I'm going to play a little bit of this. And I might push around with the time a little bit to see if you all can feel where I'm going to be pushing. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Able to follow me a little bit? A little bit. I know some of y'all never heard this before. Y'all can take a seat. Thank you for being such good audience members. So you can have them walk to the beat to feel that in their bodies, and then you can also have them sing the melodic line. Things to look for when you're using rubato are big stretches. So for example, in this particular excerpt, if you see something that's over or close to where an octave would be, like in the second line, that's going to be a time you're going to have to stretch, and you can also stretch the time a little bit. So instead of playing it, you might think about it, you're stretching up to that note, or if you were to sing it, you might take a little bit of time to dwell on that note. You can also identify points of harmonic stress, so you can ask your student to listen for points where they hear tension in the music, and points where they feel like it's relaxing. So you can do this by playing the left hand block, so you can hear the full chord. There's a point of tension and release. So you can think about pushing to the point of tension and then letting each of the phrases taper off really nicely. Anna Lindemann was a Norwegian composer, singer, and pedagogue. Her family philosophy expressed that anyone could play, compose, and understand music theory and pedagogy, and they strived to reach each and every student. Lindemann composed character pieces to teach musicality and technique to her students in a way that was engaging and motivating. She professed that teaching piano technique solely through scales and arpeggios was horribly boring and doomed to fail. Gapa is from her 3 piano pieces, and it translates to go on. It's an early advanced level 9. Its pedagogical elements include arpeggios, voicing, 2-note slurs, chromaticism, and phrasing. A comparable work in the classical canon would be Schubert's 6 Moments Musicale, particularly number 4 in C# minor. With this kind of piece, this is where I asked you all if you knew what texture meant. It has a lot of thick texture, which means there's just a lot of notes, especially in the left hand. Let me go ahead and move on to this line. There's just a lot of notes, a lot of chords. It's really thick, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to hear the melodic line. So to make sure that you can hear it, ask your student to go ahead and play maybe a preparatory exercise. You could have them just block through some arpeggios like this. So they can feel that shape in their hands. And then when you are going to unblock the arpeggio to make sure that it sounds fluid and you can control the texture and shaping of it, you want to use those wrist circles that I talked about with Adventurous Journey. So if I'm moving up in my left hand, I'm thinking about going over. before approaching a piece like this. Next, after you try that, you can have them analyze the chords, you could block them in time, and then you can also try singing the melodic line, or you could also play it for them while they block through and play the left hand. Same kind of concept as Summer Fuller, you can find the harmonic stress in this way. And with the right hand being chordal as well, you can go through and ghost play the notes that are not melodic while you bring out the top note. That's called voicing. Shaping, and that'll help bring out the clarity of the right hand, voicing to that top note and bringing the left hand down. Last but not least in this set is a piece by Fanny Hensel. Fanny was a Romantic era German pianist and composer, and she was the sister of Felix Mendelssohn. She was his confidant for musical advice, and Felix actually readily admitted that Fanny was the better pianist between the two. She was a prolific composer. She wrote over 500 works, most of which are still unfortunately in manuscript form because she wasn't able to publish a lot of her music at the time because women were expected to stay in the home. Her piece, Schluss, is from 14 piano pieces. It translates to conclusion, and it's an intermediate level 6. Its pedagogical elements include phrasing, pedaling, and voicing, and thick texture as well. A preparatory work for this piece could be Chopin Prelude, opus number 28. And with this kind of piece, we have 3 different voices that we're playing with. We have the left hand, and then the right hand has 2 voices. So with this particular piece, the title is once again a little bit more elusive. So you could paint a picture, and then you could discuss with your student how you could fill out the voices or how you could thin out the voices. For me, I painted a picture of a woman looking back on her life or her relationship. She might have feelings of sorrow, or she might have feelings of bliss. And for me, those feelings of angst or sorrow are thicker textures, so that's when I'm going to bring out all of my inner voicing and really allow it to just be a nice full sound. And then those thinner, lighter sounds of bliss or nostalgia, I'm going to reduce those inner voices and make them nice and light. So you can try a few different combinations. So you could play the right hand, just the half notes, which are going to be primarily our melodic line, with the left hand. And you want to go ahead and use pedal for this. Normally, we would advise students to not necessarily use pedal at first to see what can be accomplished through finger legato, but because we have octaves in the right hand, and then we have these inner voices, they're going to need to contract their hands. So we're going to need to pedal on every single half note. Another thing that you could try is playing the bass notes while you play just the inner voices, just so that you can hear a more legato sound while you're playing through them. Combinations, you can play the right hand while ghosting the inner voices so that you can still hear the singing melodic line and keep the inner voices a little bit smaller. And that way your student will be able to bring those inner voices a little bit down. So as you're going through and you're finding shaping with your student, you can fill out those inner voices just to make a thicker texture, or you can reduce it depending on the character or the idea that you pick for each line of the music. All right, we have made it to the end. I'm going to play these last 3 pieces for you, and then if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. I will say disclaimer that all of these pieces are not on there because some of them don't have recordings that exist right now. But it's got some of the pieces that I played tonight by women composers, and it's got all of the pieces by their counterparts. And then also drum gnome, if you need a good drum beat metronome. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I'd like to say thank you so much to Dr. Lopes and Dr. Welsh for all of their help preparing this recital, and thank you all for coming. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll stick around.